Hello, sixth graders. I'm Mr. Bloom, and what you have in front of you is a globe. When we get back to school, you're going to realize that the science teachers have a lot of globes like this in our rooms, and we're going to use them frequently for lessons that we do throughout the year, whether it be geology, astronomy, or weather. So we think it's a good idea that you are familiar with these globes and know some important parts and features of the globe. So first of all, this is our planet Earth. I'm hoping we already knew that. And the general shape of Earth is a sphere. It's a three-dimensional circle. It's not perfect, but I guess that's the best way to describe it. Again, Earth is a sphere. And if we look at the globe, the first thing I want to point out is that there is this blue line, okay? And it runs all the way around the Earth. Okay, it's kind of like the belt of the Earth. And this blue line is called the Earth's equator. Okay, so I'm going to label that on the globe with a Post-it note right now so you can see that this blue line is the Earth's equator. And this equator is kind of the center of the sphere. And it's going to separate for us the top and bottom portions of the globe. So basically everything above the equator, this whole top half, everything above, okay? And then everything below. This whole top half of the globe above the equator is the northern hemisphere. Again, it's that whole area above. And below the equator, this one might be hard to read on the bottom here, but this bottom area is the southern hemisphere. So the equator separates the two hemispheres, north and south. All right? Now, our location on the globe, let me rotate this here. As you can see, the Earth does really rotate in real life. But our location is above the equator in America. So this is our country. And more specifically, if we zoom in, we live in this orange state over here called New Jersey. So we are above the equator in the northern hemisphere is where we live. So we've got the equator so far and our two hemispheres, north and south. We can further divide the globe. If I go over to this side of the globe, there's another line, and I'm going to kind of move up top here. If you see, there's a line that starts up here, and it goes down through England, and it keeps coming down. And if we get way down here, I'm actually going to tip the globe a little bit so we can see this. There's a line called the prime meridian. Okay, this is a line that goes opposite the equator. It actually starts way up here where my finger is and goes all the way around the globe this way and comes back up here. This splits the globe into a left and right side. Okay, so over here on the left, if you're to the left of the prime meridian, this whole side over here, this would be your western hemisphere. So I'm going to put a Post-it note showing that this side is the western hemisphere. Again, it's this entire side to the left of the prime meridian is the western hemisphere. Over here, on the right of the prime meridian, this is the eastern hemisphere. So I'll put a Post-it note showing that that's the eastern hemisphere over there. So again, we live in the northern hemisphere and we're also in the western hemisphere as well. So we're in the northwest hemisphere. Next to us as well, we kind of looked, I'm going to take this off. We looked at where New Jersey is. Okay, New Jersey is that orange state. We have a large ocean next to us. Okay, this ocean is the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, that's the ocean that is very close to New Jersey on the east coast of the United States. If we go to the other side of the globe, okay, I'm going to take this northern hemisphere off, but we have on the opposite coast, that purple state is California. This large ocean on this side is called the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so basically Pacific is the opposite side of us. Our side has the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic, Pacific. Again, the blue line's equator, northern hemisphere is above, southern hemisphere is below. I also want to point out way at the top of the globe, way up here, kind of this area, the tip top, we have up there, this is the North Pole area. Okay, so way at the top is the North Pole, NP, and way down here at the bottom, we have the South Pole area. Okay, it might be hard for you to see. Let me go like that. South Pole. So South Pole, North Pole. All right, so the North Pole is in the northern hemisphere because it's above the equator. The South Pole is down here in the southern hemisphere because it's below the equator. All right, we also, remember we mentioned the prime meridian. That's kind of over in this area that runs down the globe this way and all the way back around. And that separates your western hemisphere from your eastern hemisphere over here. Okay, we reviewed where we live, where New Jersey is. And I think those are the main pieces of this, but I'm going to take all of these Post-it notes off. And I just want to point out one more thing. If we look on the equator, I'm going to zoom in on this here. Notice it says, zoom out, it says direction of Earth's rotation, and the equator is labeled. And the arrow for the rotation is pointing to the right. This Earth rotates. Okay, so I'm going to go back like this, and it rotates in this direction. This would also be considered counterclockwise, the opposite way a clock would rotate. This is the opposite way of a clock. Clockwise would be this way, okay, kind of coming towards us. It goes counterclockwise. And I also want to point out, if you look at this globe, the equator, it's not straight up and down like my hand is. It's actually tilted because the Earth is tilted as well. Okay, so the Earth is tilted, it's leaning, which is going to be very important later on. You can kind of see the equator is like leaning like my hand is. It's kind of on a slant. It's not straight up and down. It's not straight like that. It's leaning, and that tilt is going to be important later on when we do something with the seasons and some other astronomy stuff as well. All right, notice the Earth is really covered with a lot of water. It's mostly covered with water. That's all the blue. And it's interesting to also note that most of the land seems to be above the equator. There's a lot more ocean below the equator. So then again, we have our Earth, a sphere, the planet we live on, and hopefully you learn some basic features and landmarks on it that we're going to use throughout the year.